Hello and welcome back to another Idiot's Guide here with your local idiot Ash, trying to teach you today how to properly play as a rogue. This is your dual blade wielding ninja duelist rogue, you know, assassin type of design for a character. Lots of attacks, lots of skills, and a couple of unique little traits to it to learn, but in a lot of ways very similar to most of the melee, DPS, or even tank type classes that we've gone over already in how it basically functions in combat. So remember, if you find anything you like or anything that helps you in an idiot's guide, then head pats and ear rubs are always welcome. Now, the unique traits of the rogue that we need to go over are primarily hide and trick attack. So hide is what you might expect. You go stealth, enemies aren't going to see you, your movement speed is reduced. This only works on enemies that are 10 levels higher than you or lower than that. So you're not going to go through extremely overpowered areas using this. And it doesn't work on all enemies either. That should be known. This doesn't work on all enemies. Certain enemies will have like special vision and be able to see through your hide. It's basically to stop you from abusing it. Now, hide on its own, not exceedingly useful. Being able to sneak through certain areas might help here or there, but in party content, there isn't really a reason to stay hidden from the enemies. You're going to be fighting alongside the rest of your party. But what it leads into is trick attack. This can only be executed when you're hidden. This is your opening attack, your backstab on the enemy. So trick attack can deal decent damage against the enemy. It does even better damage against the enemy if you strike them from behind, from the rear. I went over the ring around enemies when I was covering the pugilist. So if you need a refresher on that, then I'll link to the pugilist video here and in the description. But anything within this bracket where the line stops, this is the rear of the enemy. You hit them from here, you get extra damage out of trick attack. But the damage isn't really the best part of trick attack. It's good. It's a burst of damage. It's always nice to have those. But look at the additional effect on the tooltip. Increases target's damage taken by 5%. Now note, this is not the damage you deal to the target. This is the damage everyone deals to the target. This is why a lot of the much later end game or really difficult content groups like to have, well, a ninja, the advanced job of the rogue, in their groups. The trick attack ability opening the target up and causing every single thing that hits the target to deal more damage to them. And that is very useful. Now, it's limited in usefulness right now. You're not really going to hide and trick attack big bosses and trials and things of that sort. That's not really how you're going to do it. But by the time you get up to the advanced job to ninja, you are going to start unlocking a new method of allowing you to get trick attack in against any enemy, even the ones you can't hide beforehand and hit, or the ones that you just don't have time or the ability for some reason or other to hide beforehand. So there is a way to get trick attack in later, but right now your best bet is hiding and trick attacking. Many groups may not give you the opportunity to do that before they start a fight. If you've worked it out with your party beforehand, that would probably work best, and you know that the enemy you're going to use it against is one you can use it against. And so that is how you're going to want to open fights, if at all possible. like I said, your party may not be working with you or understand what you're trying to do, in which case just help them fight. But if you can open a fight that way by hiding and then stabbing an enemy in the back to give them a vuln stack, then that's a good way to do it. Beyond that, your fighting is as most melee DPSs. You have a 1-2-3 combo. Like the Pugilist, you have a positional attack in your 1-2-3 combo. So your 1, Spinning Edge, and your 2, Gust Slash, you can execute from anywhere. And your 3, Aeolian Edge, you can still execute that from anywhere. But if you want to get the best potency out of your Aeolian Edge, then you want to get behind your target, again, from the rear. Hit them in the rear, right? Hit them in this rear section here, and Aeolian Edge will deal increased damage. But that's your 1-2-3 combo, and that's how you're basically going to fight. That's really the extent of your fighting, because you only get these 3 attacks, and they're all part of your combo. You have some other attacks that are a little more situational, but one thing to note, as a rogue, up to level 30, you don't get any AoE attacks. You only get single target attacks. Now, that doesn't mean you don't get any AoE attacks. The rogue does get Death Blossom at 38. So if you were still a rogue at 38 and haven't gotten to Ninja yet, which is possible, that is possible. As I've said before, by the time you're reaching level 30, you're probably getting close to the place in the main story where you're going to start unlocking the advanced job for your class. That doesn't guarantee you're going to be there, and it also doesn't guarantee you're going to take on the quest right at level 30 to unlock it. But if you get up to 38, you'll have Death Blossom, and that's your AoE attack. You only have 1. There is no combo off of Death Blossom for the rogue, and so you're basically just going to be spamming Death Blossom if you're in a group of enemies every single time. And that's all you really need to know about Death Blossom. But that is pretty much how your combat is going to flow. Your 1, your 2, try to get to the rear of the enemy if at all possible, and use your 3. If you don't want to be dancing around the enemy, you can just straight up try to fight the enemy from behind, right? Just execute all of your attacks from the enemy's rear without trying to move around them at all, and you'll still be getting that bonus off of Aeolian Edge. But Aeolian Edge is the only one that has that positional, so if for any reason you need to dance around the enemy, that's fine in your 1 and your 2, right? In your Spinning Edge and your Gust Slash, it's fine. You only need to be behind them for Aeolian Edge, and even then, if you miss the rear positional, you're only going to deal less damage to them. It's not going to be like you don't get to use it at all. Aside from that, you have your range attacks. The rogue gets throwing daggers. We've been over range attacks plenty of times, right? When you're out far from the enemy and you're coming in towards them, throwing a ranged attack as you close the gap to get into fighting range with them can be useful. Throwing ranged attacks when you need to maneuver around the enemy because of some sort of mechanic that the enemy's doing that means that you can't stay still is a good way to keep up the damage if you have to go outside of melee range. If you're maneuvering around the enemy, but you're able to stay within melee range, like they're using line AoEs or wedge AoEs or something, you just need to dance around them, then always try and stay in melee range and just dance around them and get your melee attacks off. But if for whatever reason you have to go away from them, like they've got an AoE underneath them, you just can't stay in melee range, then just keep throwing your daggers at them while you're maneuvering away from it. The last thing that you have as a rogue is Mug. Now, Mug deals some damage, right? It has a potency of 150. It's decent damage. It's an ability, so it's an off global cooldown, and you can weave it. Has a 120-second recast time. All of that's fine, but the benefit for Mug is the additional effect. That's what you get a lot as Rogue, where you'll see that the additional effects that you get are actually kind of more important than just the base damage you're dealing. If you use Mug, either as a killing blow against the enemy or within a very short time period before you kill the enemy. Basically, if you use Mug as your last 1, 2, maybe 3 attacks before you kill an enemy, then it actually increases the chance of the enemy dropping additional items. You're mugging the enemy. You're mugging them, and so when you finish them off, they'll drop more items for you. Possibly. It's just an increase to the chance. It's not a guarantee. So basically, you just want to keep fighting your enemy. Keep dealing damage. Your enemy starts to get low on health. You know they're going to die within the next few seconds. Go ahead and hit them with a mug, and then just keep fighting them and burn them down. Because remember, once you get mug off, that doesn't last forever. So if you don't use it as a killing blow, then you want to use it when the enemy's already low in health. And if it doesn't kill them, you want to make sure to keep hitting them hard and burn their health down fast. If you care about the increased item drop. It's not going to really make or break anything for most people. So it doesn't matter too much, but it can just be a nice little boost if you want that. That really covers all the basic combat. Everything else we're going to go over is a couple of buffs, some things to keep your health up mostly. Some abilities we've been over plenty of times with other classes. I'll go over them again really quick here. And then one extra unique feature. A rogue has a mitigation ability. Just like we see on tanks, just like we've seen on a few other classes, a rogue is able to use Shade Shift to create a barrier, a shield on themselves, which can take up to 20% of their maximum HP and damage. It only lasts 20 seconds. You can't just turn it on and leave it on. You want to make sure to use it when an enemy's focusing on you, attacking you, damaging you. Then you pop a shield, and for the next 20 seconds, you've got an extra 20% on top of your normal health as like effective health, right? Your effective HP goes up for 20% for the next 20 seconds. Just a nice little way to sort of mitigate the enemy dealing damage to you. On top of that, you also have Second Wind, which pretty much all of our physical DPS classes get. A nice way to give yourself a little burst heal. It's not a huge amount of HP, but it can help keep you up and the healer able to focus on other things in the fight. And then you also have Bloodbath, a good way to keep your HP kind of topped off while you're fighting. Right? As I've gone over with other classes, Second Wind tends to be better when you need a decent chunk of HP immediately. Bloodbath tends to be better when you're not way down in health. You've lost some health, but the enemy is actively focusing on you and they're still reducing your health more and more. Bloodbath is a way to kind of counter that and just sort of keep your health up. By just regenerating HP every single time you hit the enemy, you get some HP back. Beyond all that, like I said, 2 abilities that we've seen on plenty of other classes. I can go over them real quick here. Leg Sweep. An OGCD ability that can be weaved into your other attacks, and it stuns the target for 3 seconds. Again, stun is great for taking high damage enemies out of the fight for a few seconds, or possibly knocking an enemy out of an ability that they're planning to use. It's difficult to tell which abilities you can stun an enemy out of, and which ones you would have to use Interrupt, and which ones are completely uninterruptible. As I've been over before, Interrupt and uninterruptible aren't too difficult to tell apart, but stun, you kind of just need to try it out on an enemy from time to time and see if it works. Usually, if you can stun an enemy, you can stun them out of their casts. There are plenty of enemies in the game that will resist your stun attacks because they're too strong, you're too weak, they have resistances to stunning in general, any number of reasons. But if you can stun an enemy, you can probably stun them out of an attack that they're casting. And Feint. right? The enemy deals 10% less physical damage and 5% less magic damage for the next 10 seconds. Somewhat good in general. Best if you see an enemy about to use a big, heavy hitting attack against you, against your party, against someone else. It doesn't matter who. If the enemy's about to use a big attack, you can feint them before the attack goes off and reduce the amount of damage that attack is going to deal. That's the best use case for that. That is really all you need to know in order to play the rogue at a basic level. It teaches you how each of the abilities works, how they should flow together, basic combat setup. You'll be able to handle most of the content for a rogue, especially before you even get up to your advanced job, that way. And that's about all you need to know for it for now. Again, if you enjoyed the video, you want to see more, go ahead and like the video. If you enjoy my content in general and you want to keep up with what I'm releasing, you can subscribe here. I also have my streaming channel where I just upload the VODs of my streams if you're interested in that stuff. If you have any further questions, feel free to leave a comment and I will try to respond to any of them that I see. And I will see you guys in the next Idiot's Guide. Later.